It is Monday, July 10th, 2017. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So you know what time it is. It's time for some coin metal. And as usual, I don't really have a whole lot picked out to talk about. Although I do have a few tabs available on the browser that I'd previously opened and had available to us. And unfortunately, it was a completely unproductive getting your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Monday, as I did not go in and get my ass kicked today. I'm still kind of on the mend and trying to let my elbows heal up a little bit more before I go letting those people yank on them anymore. You got to do that occasionally, you can't ride the body too hard, otherwise you start developing institutional issues that you do not recover from. Anyway, as far as the crypto world is going, this morning was a complete and total bloodbath with regard to alts. It's just down, doobie, down, and I don't know, I'm starting to wonder if that isn't just money either going back out into institutionals, because it is a Monday, so that leaves open the possibility, and it did primarily happen. The vast majority of the activity did happen within the business hours of legacy finance operations, so it is entirely plausible to assert that there's a plausible correlation there. And I said that last week when Bitcoin took a big dive. It's like they waited until 9 a.m. on Monday to do it. They're fucking bankers. Can you be more obvious? I mean, these are people that obviously work 9 to 5 jobs. It's not that hard to figure out. Anyway, to honor this, I'm going to go ahead and open it up with our first dance. A little bit of static X here, no submission here on Coin Metal. And that was Metallica with Battery. And so, I do have one major announcement. I talked to a gentleman this morning about coming on the show, and so far we are 100% in line to have Mr. John McAfee on to talk about his latest cryptocurrency project on Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, as normal. And I'm terribly excited to talk to him, honestly. I've been following for a little bit, and I'm interested to hear what he has to say about his project, because he has been increasing his presence within the crypto sphere. I don't know if anybody has noticed this. He's got MGT Capital and a couple other projects that he's working on, and not entirely behind the scenes, but not quite as public as we would like to see, at least at this point. Anyway, he is coming out with a token of his own. The designation on it is MCF McAfee Coin. And I'm terribly excited to hear more about it, as I'm sure everyone else is as well. Anywho, getting back into today, and as far as actual media, unfortunately today was just so painful when I looked at the charts this morning that I was just like, okay, gonna hold on to the bags and not worry about it, because tomorrow's another day. There's only so much financial activity going on out there, and I think this is one of the things that cryptocurrencies are kind of making apparent, is that even with as little money that has been taken out of the or monetary value rather, that has been taken out of the system, they're already talking about regulating it. It's all over the fucking place, but I have addressed this a couple times on the show, and so far, with limited exception, the actual impacts on us here in cryptocurrencies have had more to do with the interaction between crypto and fiat. It's still the biggest hurdle to climb, although I think I may have resolved that one for myself. In any case, that's like one of the things that I really think we should be addressing is getting the most reliable means of switching from fiat to crypto and back made completely apparent to everybody. I try and investigate it myself, and there are a few options out there. One that I'm most keenly interested in at this point anyway is local bitcoins. But I've noticed this disturbing trend, and I guess Kraken is the latest one for it to happen to, is that these exchanges that we're allowed to trade in are suddenly unable to interact with our fiat currencies. They'll let us deposit and withdraw crypto all day long, but for whatever reason, the fiat interactions that they were having are suddenly unavailable, or at least that's been the case for me. Bitfinex was the first one that it happened on, but theirs, I actually know a little bit of the story behind that one, is that they had an account with Wells Fargo, and Wells Fargo, for whatever reason, maybe it's because they're actually legitimate transactions, is refusing to take transactions from a bank in Singapore that Bitfinex banks through. And I don't know, it's the free market at work, But I think that as much as these efforts stymie like the not all that determined among us, they'll actually motivate the more determined among us to not only seek other solutions, but if none are available, create our own. Necessity is the mother of invention, as I heard Mr. Andreas Antonopoulos quote the other day on one of the many videos. I don't know, sometimes I wonder if I'm like too submerged in this stuff. I mean, like, really, I've got my Twitter feed going all the time, and when I'm not reading this shit, I'm digging, and then I come back and I'm sitting in front of my computer reading about this stuff, or trading in it, or doing something. And so yeah, it leads me to wonder sometimes, am I just too deep? Anyway, I want to start off with something a little more entertaining as far as the articles go, because this one, I about fell out of my chair when I read this. I started looking around to see whether or not it was a quote-unquote fake news article. But this is actually all over the place. So this one is, I'm pulling it straight off of the Pima County Libertarian Party website. Oregon trying to decriminalize all drugs, even heroin and meth, in 2017. In an unprecedented move, Oregon is on its way to becoming the first state to decriminalize small amounts of hard drugs, such as heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, and ecstasy, while also lowering the penalty from a felony to a misdemeanor in some drug-related cases. Two groundbreaking bills were passed by the Oregon legislature this week and will go to the state's Democratic Governor Kate Brown for approval. House Bill 3078 reduces drug-related property crimes from felonies to misdemeanors. It passed in the state house with a vote of 33 to 26, and in the Senate with a vote of 18 to 11. House Bill 2355 seeks to decriminalize at least 6 hard drugs, as long as the user does not have any prior felonies or more than 2 prior drug convictions. It passed in the State House with a vote of 36 to 23 and in the Senate with a vote of 20 to 9. Representative Mitch Greenlake, Portland, Democrat, told the Lund Report that he sees the criminalization of drugs as a major public policy failure because it ignores the fact that addiction to certain drugs changes the physical structure of the brain and should be treated as a health problem as opposed to the current system, which labels users as felons and sentences them to a life of rebounding in and out of the criminal justice system. We've got to treat people, not put them in prison, Greenlake said. It would be like putting them in the state penitentiary for having diabetes. This is a chronic brain disorder and it needs to be treated this way. Read more. DUI checkpoints now include mouth swabs that can tell if you smoked pot days ago. Big fucking whoop-de-doo. Both bills were supported by Senator Jackie Winters, Republican Salem, the longest-serving African-American woman in Oregon Senate history. During the Senate hearing, she silenced critics by referring to the current war on drugs as, quote, institutional racism. The Lund Report noted that in addition to pushing for decriminalization, Winters has been fighting to decrease the prison population since 2011. Quote, there is empirical evidence that there are certain things that follow race. We don't like to look at the disparity in our prison system, Winters said. It is institutional racism. We can pretend it doesn't exist, but it does. While law enforcement has worked to derail attempts to reform prison sentencing in the past, H.R. 3078 includes a provision that tasks the Criminal Justice Commission with providing local jurisdictions with $7 million for diversion programs. The bill would reduce some mandatory minimum sentences for property crimes and increase the number of prior convictions necessary for a felony offense. Representative Jody Hack, Republican Salem, was one of the few Republicans to support 3078, and she told the Lund Report that she has received threats as a result. However, she noted that the opportunity to keep families together and to send drug users to a diversion program for help instead of prison was what anchored her support. Read more, have your life saved, whatever. Quote, we are putting addicts and nonviolent offenders in prison, Hack said. We in the U.S. are 5% of the world's population, but 20% of the prison population. Oregon became the first state to decriminalize small amounts of cannabis in 1973 before becoming one of the first states to legalize it for medicinal use in 1998 and then finally legalizing it for recreational use in 2015. This raises the question, if Oregon decriminalizes small amounts of drugs such as heroin, cocaine, and ecstasy, will other states follow suit? The push for ending the failed war on drugs appears to be gaining traction as the most popular medical journal in the United Kingdom, the British Medical Journal, argued in November of 2016 that, quote, laws against drug use have harmed people across the world, while stressing that drug addiction should be viewed as a health problem and police involvement must end. As the Free Thought Project reported last week, the United Nations is now calling for the worldwide decriminalization of drug use and possession. A statement from the World Health Organization called for ending discrimination in healthcare settings as well as various marginalized and stigmatized populations. Wow. You know, I still have a hard time reconciling myself with the fact that it is legal to grow and smoke cannabis in this state. But wow, I don't know about meth. That's one of those drugs that I don't know. Just a lot of negative outcomes associated with it, and heroin too as well. I mean, there is an opioid addiction epidemic rather, in this country, or at least that's what the media tells us. There seems to be an awful lot of drugs being done out there, at least in the pill form. But from as far as I can discern, it seems like those are the gateway drug, right? Is that like you get a back injury, and then you start on the Oxycontins, and then either your insurance drops you and you get fired, or you get fired and you lose your insurance that way, or something happens and your access to the Oxycontin goes away. And so now here you are, you're still in pain, you're still trying to recover from this issue, and you've probably got an opioid dependency by now, and the only place to get something like that is out on the street or some other connivery in order to acquire the pill form of it. And all because of this goofy regulatory body we've got going on with the DEA and the whole war on drugs. And so next thing you know, you're stealing people's property so you can fucking sell it and buy heroin. I mean, that's just tragic, but it happens all the time. And it's sad, like I said, it's tragic, but it's a product of like the manufacturing cycle that we've set up. You know, it's like I worked in a fab that it worked in such a way that you could enter in wafers with nothing on them on the first step, and then 138 steps, and about approximately 2.5 days later, you could pick up that same wafer and it's got 422 little die on it that can be cut up and stuffed into RAM. Well, now see, we got a production cycle in our society going on there, where the AMA and everybody says opioids are great for pain relief. Now, disregarding the fact that there are plenty of other pain relievers that don't create the same dependency issues that opioids do, disregard that entirely. Why? Because those are categorized as illegal. You know, cannabis, THC, it's excellent for neuropathic pain, but because it's illegal federally, they can't take advantage of those pain relieving effects, and so we go with opium-based medications instead, or cocaine-based medications instead. And so, like I said, that's like the starting point. That's like production step one. And the end product is somebody bouncing in and out of jail or bouncing in and out of a treatment program because they can't seem to get their shit together. It's like they're like stuck in this fucking loop. It's like, they get sober for long enough to be able to get a job, and then as soon as they get a paycheck, they buy some fucking pills or they buy some smack or whatever, and they're able to maintain for like another week or two or whatever, and then they stop going to work, and they end up stealing shit again to get by and whatnot, and then they're back in jail again. It's because I think anyway, because of the legal paradigm that we have set up around drugs in this country and kind of on this planet. We're in 50 other countries with our DEA offices. Is that where it's not accounted for elsewhere in society, these people, even in prison, they stay on opioids until they overdose. That's like the most common way out for them. It's not, and that's reality. It doesn't have to be that way, though. I mean, and I have noticed here in Oregon, at least, an increase in kratom. And it leads me to believe that there are a lot of people around me that have opioid issues, because there is an association there. Now, I have heard about people using kratom specifically to transition entirely off of opioids. I don't know what the success ratio is on that, but if that's the case, that would be kind of like having a boga out there, you know? I mean, supposedly that's another one that just like rewrites your endocrine system or whatever it is that gets hyper dependent on opioids. But that from what I understand is a long, painful trip, at least mental anguish wise, in helping you kind of get around that. I don't know. I've never done a boga, so, but I've studied quite a bit on like Erowid, and like I said, kratom. That's a low level one. I've also heard people transitioning over to cannabis. And that one seems the most plausible to me because, and I had this conversation with a friend earlier, that cannabis will suit a lot of the same needs that opioids fill, without a lot of the same deleterious effects that heroin or opioid use over extended periods of time produces. I'm not going to say it's 100% clean. You know, no drug per se is quote unquote clean, but I do think that if people had wider access to cannabis, that resorting to opioid use would be a lot lower, you know. And as a matter of fact, the statistics for the last 40 years in Denmark prove me correct on this, that they've had a much more relaxed view with regard to cannabis there, and the Dutch experiment has worked out wonderfully. The rates of domestic abuse are in the toilet. The rates of alcoholism are in the toilet. The rates of hard drug use, opioid use, in the toilet. All of these things just precipitously fell off a cliff when they were very liberal with their drug laws. Then, of course, they got a little conservative, and the first thing that happened, started seeing more fucking opioid use. And then the conservative government backed off, and everything went back to normal. There's a corollary here, people. People want to alter themselves from normal baseline consciousness. That's it, period. And we're not alone in this. As a matter of fact, I don't think there is an organism out there that doesn't get high in some way. I mean, we see elephants, they go fucking nuts during the fall cycle because they can smell the alcohol from people brewing it, number one. But they can smell the alcohol, and they're like attuned to like chase after the shit, and they will maraud through villages and whatnot to try and get to it. That's not something that's alien to elephants. That they're attuned to it, because there would be forests, and you have like a patch of mangroves or whatever, and it's got a lot of fruited trees, and they follow the ground and they rot, and in that decomposition, there would be base alcohols in there, and monkeys do that too. They'll hunt down spoiled fruit and eat that shit on up as it's turning into alcohol and get all drunk. Elephants do the same thing. And so the tendency, the desire to alter consciousness, I think, is endemic in life, period. If an organism can alter consciousness, it will alter consciousness. And so in that regard, the quote-unquote drug war is a fight against our own just inherent nature. And we found out through the prohibition of alcohol that it makes as much sense as beating your head against the wall. All you've done is create a new class of criminals, or a series class of new criminals, and an outright disregard or disrespect of polite society. You know, I mean, and what other expectation should you have? You know, that after a while of pressing people, it's like, you know, I want you to come to work at 8 o'clock. I want you to dress a certain way. I want you to act a certain way. I want you to hold your tongue. I don't want you to ogle at your female coworkers and whatnot. I want you to be sober the entire time that you're at work, and then, you know, go home and whatever for however long until 8 o'clock in the morning the next morning, and I want you to do it all over again. I want you to do that at least 5 times a week, if not more. You know, there's that period in between that's yours, and without being able to do what you want with that period, it's a lot. How should I say it? It's just too much to ask, I think. You know, it's like, it's enough to say, hey, you know, when you're here, I want you to be sober because you're handling big machinery. I don't want you to run somebody else over. That's not a unreasonable expectation. But like the moment that I leave the place, okay, that's my time. And I think that trying to carry forward such behavior modification outside of the workplace, I think it's just too much to ask. Like I said, I think that all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Anyway, let's go ahead and dive into some music. And I've been feeling it. Rio Grande Blood Ministry here on Coin Metal. And that was This Battle Chose Us by Anthrax off of For All Kings. I gotta say, I've been listening to that album a little bit more lately, and every time I do, I'm a little more impressed with it. It's one of those that you actually have to digest it, give it a chance, you know. But I gotta say, I wasn't as hard to sell with regard to worship music. If you get an opportunity to grab a copy of that and you're an Anthrax fan at all, jump all over it, man. That is an awesome album. Any case, back onto the theme of drug prohibition and the wonderful effects it has on the rest of society. This one is on the Indian Express. It was authored on the 8th of July at 10:07 a.m. by V. Nilesh. No verification of penis or no. But here it is. Drug market booming with Indian vendors using darknet websites. Hyderabad. Even as sleuths of prohibition and excise department bust suppliers and peddlers of narcotic substances in the city, Indian drug vendors who have marked their presence on some well-known darknet markets continue their business unabated. Fed up of customs seizing your order or local vendors charging you through the roof? We are here to ensure that it doesn't happen anymore, read a message from Harry Potter, spelled H-A-R-I, Potter. Similarly, another drug vendor, Madly Footed, announced, "Let's make Indian D&M scene bright again." And Flipkart, another vendor, announced, "Namaste and welcome to our humble abode. We are the Majestic Garden, rising star rated vendor." Although it has been known for a long time that drugs are sold on darknet websites, Indian drug vendors are also taking to this platform to sell drugs without much worry of law enforcement authorities, thanks to anonymity provided by the software. The Onion router, Tor, reveals an investigation by Express. The majestic garden to which Flipkart refers to is a DNM. There are others like Dream Market, Valhalla, Alpha Bay, and Hansa. The announcement by Madly Footed was underneath a listing for, quote, clean and uncut Bolivian cocaine, along with review of quality of the cocaine with a picture of it. The vendors also provide escrow services where one can track the consignment. DNMs are like any other e-commerce portals where payment has to be made in bitcoins. DNMs have various filters including rating of a vendor and also from which country the drugs will be shipped and to where. DNMs sell a wide range of drugs like psychedelics, opioids, dissociatives, ecstasy, steroids, cannabis, benzos, barbiturates, and prescription drugs. Indian drug vendors sell a wide range of prescription drugs like benzodiazepines, antidepressants like Xanax, barbiturates, central nervous system depressants, painkillers like tramadol, and erectile dysfunction medications like tadalafil, which are misused by drug addicts. While school students might not be able to buy these drugs online, drug peddlers and addicts having basic knowledge of computer can easily buy drugs from Darknet. And gosh, somebody needed to read this aloud, really. They left a few words out. Indian drug peddlers are using even India Post services for delivering the drugs, as claimed by an Indian drug vendor on Dream Market. Some vendors also send through their personal courier networks. When contacted, Assistant Commissioner of Police, Cybercrime, Hyderabad Police, KCS Raghuvir said, "Till now, there has been no case reported to us involving drugs bought or sold on Darknet. If there is a case, it is not impossible to catch hold of the drug peddlers since drugs have to be delivered physically. Moreover, we also have very good infrastructure in place which can help tracing these drug peddlers." Cops upset about over political interference? Hyderabad. The crackdown on the drug racket in the city seems to have created a divide between the police, officials, and politicians. A day after a cabinet minister reportedly expressed unhappiness over the Excise and Prohibition Department exposing educational institutes from where students got addicted to drugs, senior police officers are understood to have been upset over political interference in the case. Police officials are of the opinion that there is nothing wrong in cracking the whip on drug peddling. Quote, "When school management notices a student doing wrong, it will bring the matter to the notice of his/her parents in an attempt to mend ways of the student." In the same manner, the excise enforcement officials wrote letters to school/college managements asking them to take measures to sensitize their students on effects of drug abuse after a few students were found purchasing drugs from peddlers. Government must appreciate the police for cracking the whip on drug peddlers, a senior police officer felt. It is also said that upset over the political interference, a senior officer involved in the drug bust kept himself away from media glare, citing, quote, fever. Meanwhile, DGP Anurag Sharma on Friday held a meeting with police commissioners and SPs, asking them to be vigilant against drug peddlers. Yeah, whatever. Give up. You people, it's hilarious in India. I mean, because really, India, according to everything that I've seen, they've got these little, how should I say, they're like a kebab place, you know, just like a little trailer kind of thing, where you can go and get a big old glass of what they call bong, or bahang, or something like that. Anyway, it's basically a smoothie, a hash smoothie. You know, it's like pre-catalyzed hash mixed with some other green stuff, and you drink it and you get really, really, really effing high, from what I understand. So, you know, the idea that they care about anybody using any substances is just ridiculous. I mean, have you ever seen a Bollywood movie? That shit is made for people tripping out of their gourds, especially like the song and dance parts. You gotta be tripping balls to enjoy that stuff. Well, I'm sorry. It's more enjoyable if you're tripping balls. There, my apologies to my Indian contingent. The point being here that, like I said, I don't see a reason why they should give a fuck about people using drugs. I mean, if you look at any video of like one of those street markets, highly colorful, very brilliant. I mean, really, if you were drinking bong or whatever, you'd be catching tracers on everything, flashes of light. I can't even imagine. It looked like a tie-dye shirt. I mean, it would look like a tie-dye shirt. The whole place would look like one big fluorescent day glow tie-dye shirt. But yeah, so it's not surprising that drug peddlers or drug vendors in India are making use of the dark net. In all honesty, I think that drugs could more or less be like the unifying basis for like global commerce. It's like if you're transitioning drugs to or from a place that like establishes a trading route for other things, you know, like clothing or media or, you know, something else. And I think that was like the purpose of the Silk Road for a while, was just like exporting opium, and then it got all kind of trade attached to it. But anyway, yeah, completely ridiculous. And this is, again, a negative effect of the United States' war on drugs. We've seen many. We will see many more. And, but fortunately for us, there's things like the darknet. You know, kind of circumventing that business, you know? And getting us over, above, and around it. And I expect that trend to continue, really. And I've said that multiple times on the show, that the more they squeeze on it, the more they try and quote unquote crack that whip, all they're really doing is enhancing the premium on it. You know what I mean? Okay, so you now drug dealers make more money because they have to take a bigger chance, so they charge a bigger premium. What have you achieved? You haven't achieved a damn thing. Oh, I'm sorry. You might have given some cops a little more reason to eat donuts. But I would like to get into another article, and you know it's bad. Okay, when people like Goldman Sachs are making comments concerning it, you know it's really bad. And here it is. This one's on CNBC. Goldman Sachs thinks the opioid crisis is so bad, it's affecting the economy. Gosh, you fucking think? I mean, really, 1 out of 5 people is hooked on some opioid or another, and you think it might be affecting the economy? I mean, maybe you would have noticed when it was like maybe 1 out of 20 or something like that. Maybe? Anyway, here it is. Goldman Sachs thinks the opioid crisis is so bad, it's affecting the economy. The opioid crisis has a major cost for the U.S. economy, including the labor market. David Miracle, the senior U.S. economist at Goldman Sachs said in a Wednesday note, and this was written on Thursday, 6th July 2017, and who's the author of this thing? Evelyn Chang! We've read her stuff before, and although Evelyn does not put up a picture, I'm going to assume from the name, no penis. The report is one of the first from a major Wall Street bank focused on the growing epidemic, killing more than 90 Americans every day. As a matter of fact, we're going to click on that. That's a link. The opioid epidemic is intertwined with the story of declining prime age participation, especially for men, and this reinforces our doubts about a rebound in the participation rate, Merkel said. The labor force participation rate, the number of people working or actively looking for work, has fallen since the Great Recession and has stagnated near 63% for the past 4 years, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics. This stagnation comes despite monthly jobs reports, such as the one due Friday, showing a steady pace of job creation and a decline in unemployment due to cannabis legalization. It's been a puzzle for economists. Why aren't more people actively looking for work again with the job market so strong? Part of the answer might be the opioid addiction, the Goldman report suggests. If the opioid epidemic prevents the participation rate from increasing, the Federal Reserve may not be able to fulfill the full employment part of its dual mandate for achieving a strong economy. The economic consequences of the opioid epidemic extend beyond the labor market, Merkel said. Quote, recent studies by Birnbaum et al., Rice et al., and Florence et al. Estimate sizable costs of healthcare, criminal justice, and lost worker productivity, he wrote. The most recent study put the total cost at $78.5 billion in 2013, and the crisis has grown significantly since then, implying substantial costs to both employers and the public sector. In May, the Fed's Beige Book report on economic conditions also noted that several contacts said job applicants could not pass drug tests for employment, Merkel pointed out. CNBC found that other Beige Books this year did not mention that detail. Nearly 13%, or 12.5 million Americans using prescription pain relievers misused them in 2015, he said, citing the National Survey on Drug Use and Health. Opioid abuse has been the main contributor to the sharp increase in the rate of drug deaths since 2000, Merkel said, noting drug misuse is more common among men, non-Hispanic whites, and those in poverty. To be sure, the Economist believes we would be wrong to assume the rise in drug use is only happening with those out of work. He pointed to a study showing prescription drug reliever abuse is only slightly more common for the unemployed than for the employed. However, it's clear the recession caused by the housing crisis had an effect on the drug epidemic. The recession likely made it worse, Merkel notes. Now, there are other factors involved here, and I think it is worth noting that licensure and other such requirements for participation in the legitimate market have become quite onerous. I mean, when you start hearing things about a cop harassing a kid trying to sell lemonade on the sidewalk, I mean, that's just Looney Tunes. I mean, you know that you've lost the market economy when that shit is going on. Okay, but at the same time, Now consider what's going on here with participation rates being lower, right? So if you do have a drug dependence issue, and 9 times out of 10 the issue in question is, of course, cannabis use. That's why people can't pass drug tests. It's not because they're popping pills. It's because the drug tests will detect cannabis use after 30 days ago. I mean, really. If you smoked pot the day that you got fired, or shit, say that 2 weeks before you got fired, you smoked pot, there's a chance that the day after you got fired, when you go ahead and you try and re-up and get a job, that you might not pass that drug test, because cannabinoid metabolites will stay in your system up to 60 days. I've actually had that problem. I mean, I've been a on and off smoker for quite a while, but I mean, literally, I took 6 weeks completely off, and I ran every other day. I drank water like there was no tomorrow, and I still failed a urinalysis 6 weeks later. Now, mind you, I had been smoking for years before that, but that's beside the point. The point being that I hadn't smoked cannabis for 6 weeks, and that inhibited me from getting a job. So this bullshit about the labor participation rate, fuck you. It's because you're holding people's previous drug use against them that they can't get or fucking keep a job. Drug testing, it's fucking Looney Tunes, man. I mean, I know that I've heard Robert Anton Wilson talk about this, but even Kafka and Orwell never envisioned a world so totalitarian and tyrannical that they would be monitoring your bladder contents to determine what substances you've been ingesting. I mean, this Orwell, 1984, you know, the fucking neocon instruction manual. But point being, they didn't see a world so far gone that people would actually be, you know, the average citizen would be so absent of their senses that they would permit such a thing, or that they would permit such a thing being held against them. And I mean, I find it complete fucking ludicrous. I mean, you have no right to bitch about your economy sucking when you put those kind of barriers to entry up. Anyway, let's go ahead and dive back into some music here, and I've been wanting to play this for a little while. Annihilator, Word Salad, here on Coin Metal. And that was Prong with Self Will Run Riot, and it most certainly will if you let it. Anyway, it does seem like there's some undue association, I guess, with cryptocurrencies and drugs. I've listened to a lot of Andreas Antonopoulos' talks about it, and I think he's right for the most part that, you know, it's a new technology, and so those with the most to gain will be the first to jump into it. And I don't know, I've expressed the opinion several times on this show that regardless of whatever regulation comes into cryptocurrencies or whatever changes may occur in the drug market, these things will continue to happen unabated, you know, and unregulated. Whether they're happening in some weird currency that isn't popularly known about, I don't know. But the point being that people, now that they do have the ability, will continue to use these tools for for commerce. And I think that the idea of liberalizing substance use, and I would like to see just decriminalization, period. I don't think that substance use or abuse is really a criminal issue. I mean, unless of course it's leading to the commission of other crimes, such as harming other people or stealing or damaging their property, then, but I just like, I don't think a gun is to blame in a murder. I don't believe that drug use per se should be usable in many instances with regard to some actual like crime. Now, however, there are dissociative substances out there, phenylcyclidine, and I believe Jimson weed. I think Jimson weed is a dissociative. Datura, I know that one. That one, according to Terence McKenna, is a dissociative, and this is a class of drugs where you're incapable of discerning the real situation. I mean, LSD, it'll take you a little bit out of sorts, and you might have a little bit of difficulty understanding what's going on outside of you at the moment. But it's not a quote-unquote disassociative. It's more an introspective kind of thing, and drawing your attention back to the moment is a lot more difficult. It's a whole different thing from a disassociative high. Any case, on to the cryptocurrency side of things, because this is coin metal, not coin drug. I got one here on the Daily Economist, and it was written 10:18 a.m., and I'm just checking to verify whether or not this is a reference to another article somewhere else, because it looks relatively short. What the hell. U.S. regulators finalized Bitcoin as CFTC-approved options trading of the cryptocurrency. U.S. regulators financialized Bitcoin as CFTC-approved options trading of the cryptocurrency. One of the biggest fears for investors of any particular asset class is when Wall Street gains the ability to financialize them using Warren Buffett's weapons of financial destruction. And in this, we mean the ability for Wall Street to leverage an asset through derivatives. In the financial markets, there are many different types of derivatives, including such mundane articles like options or futures. And on July 9th, Bitcoin suddenly entered this arena as the CFTC approved the ability for the cryptocurrency to be traded in the options market. In a move that may surprise many in the cryptocurrency world, the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC, announced that Ledger X, and you know what, we're going to click on that announcement there so we have something next to go to, that Ledger X has officially been granted status as a swap execution facility, SEF. This represents a major hurdle in the company's overarching plan of becoming the first federally recognized exchange able to trade Bitcoin options. The final step in this major achievement is the approval from the CFTC as a derivatives clearing organization. Once this has been granted, LedgerX will be the first federally regulated Bitcoin options exchange and clearinghouse to list and clear fully collateralized, physically settled Bitcoin options for the institutional market. That's very interesting. for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency owners, the ability to leverage these assets using paper options contracts should send shockwaves through the entire industry, since it also means that investment banks and major dealers can push big money into these decentralized currencies and manipulate their prices just as they do with gold and silver in the futures market. It was inevitable that either the government or Wall Street would seek to bring Bitcoin under their derivative umbrella at some point and use the markets to control the cryptocurrency when it became apparent they could not destroy it. And this in turn will leave many of the exchanges with little choice but to apply for an options license themselves and allow investors to buy paper instead of the actual currency and trade it in a much faster and much more volatile way than before. Like, full of shit. These fucking people don't pay attention to crypto markets. When was the last time that you logged on to Bitfinex or Bittrex or Gemini or any one of these cryptocurrency exchanges and found a sign that said official business hours 8 a.m. through 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Monday through Friday, no Saturday and Sunday? When was the last time you saw that shit? I don't recall ever seeing that shit in association with cryptocurrency exchanges. These things are running 24/7. And these monkeys are thinking about it like it's something that they can fucking manipulate. Dude, you want to talk manipulation? Fucking Bitcoin just tanked like $600 over the last month. $800 over the last month. And the altcoin markets have been hemorrhaging as well. So, yeah, give me this bullshit fucking manipulation shit. I think we've been teaching them a trick or two about quote-unquote manipulation. Shit. Like I said, I don't think these guys have been paying attention to the crypto markets, because manipulation is like an art form on cryptocurrency markets, and if you can keep yourself from getting wrecked, through just standard trading practices and whatnot, you're like 8 miles ahead of the game, because a lot of people get ran into the wall on a daily basis. I mean, come on now, manipulation shit. These people ever hear of a fucking troll box? What about Twitter? You ever hear of Twitter? Think you might have been manipulated through something you read on Twitter? Give me a break. Anyway, as far as how these paper markets are going to affect us, in all honesty, I think that people who are interested in trading cryptocurrencies are already trading cryptocurrencies. And that people who are comfortable trading paper will continue to trade paper. Now, they might trade paper that's loosely associated with cryptocurrencies or, tokens or something. I don't know. The association, I don't know how they're going to do that. We'll find out. We'll find out if it has any real... this thing has got a tag in here. Let's see what that says. Maybe it'll give us a little bit more about... Oh, Ledger X. Anyway, we might just mine these guys today. But the point being that... why am I going to bother with the derivative when I can buy the real thing? See, derivatives are under the control of their custodians, ultimately. And whatever liabilities you may incur from, say, Ledger X is the intermediary here. Which, side note here, this completely is against the entire idea of cryptocurrencies. The idea is to limit if not completely eliminate third parties in the transactions that you do between persons. These are person-to-person cash currencies. So now why am I going to involve LedgerX in this business? And so again, if I can go to an exchange and I can trade cryptocurrencies directly, why am I going to go and trade paper? What additional assurances does that give me? Are they going to be backing this paper with volumes of a cryptocurrency? Not likely. I mean, if they are, cool. If they've got some sort of custody requirements or whatever for the cryptocurrencies that are being backed by their paper, or that are backing their paper, okay, cool. But I doubt that's the case. I mean, the whole point of derivatives is because you don't have it and you want to make money off of it. So yeah, LedgerX. Yeah, why not? Here it is. It's short enough. LedgerX is an institutional trading and clearing platform that is awaiting full regulatory approval from the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission to trade and clear options on Bitcoin. LedgerX has applied for registration with the CFTC as a swap execution facility and derivatives clearing organization. If approved, LedgerX would be the first federally regulated Bitcoin options exchange and clearinghouse to list and clear fully collateralized, physically settled Bitcoin options for the institutional market. The LedgerX management team comprises Goldman Sachs, MIT, and the CFTC alumni who bring financial expertise, technical talent, and regulatory experience to the firm. Ananda Radhakrishnan, former director of the CFTC's Division of Clearing and Risk and partner at Norton Rose Fulbright, and Carl Mahler, partner at Gelber Group, currently sit on the LedgerX LLC board of directors. Mark Weichen, managing director at Depository Trust and Clearing Corp, and former commissioner of the CFTC, and Robert Castrignano, principal in the equities division at Sandler O'Neill and Partners LP, currently sit on the board of directors of Ledger Holdings Incorporated, the parent company of LedgerX. On December 16, 2016, Ledger Holdings and Miami International Holdings Incorporated, MIH, the parent holding company of the MIAX Options Exchange, jointly announced that MIH had completed an investment in Ledger Holdings. Early investors in Ledger Holdings include Google Ventures and Lightspeed Venture Partners. Participant information if you are interested in becoming, no. Media information, contacts, blah blah blah. Any more about these guys? Very, very interesting looking website. I've seen scams with better looking websites, but okay. Anyway, so LedgerX appear. Oh, here we go. And they raise a bunch of money. So, how this is going to impact cryptocurrencies? It might slow the progression of cryptocurrencies into the legacy space, but as I've seen cryptocurrencies evolve, the institutional participation, actual participation, is not non-existent, but it's minimal by comparison to self-driven individuals who are either operating as developers or administrators or so on and so forth, but they're not associated with Goldman Sachs and they're not associated with Chase or any of these other people. So, as far as I'm concerned, this doesn't actually confer any legitimacy. in cryptocurrency. Like if I were an advisor advising a quote-unquote noob, or somebody who's not even adventurous enough to be a noob, but really wants to make money. Somebody like that, if I were to be introducing them to investment options, I would never even mention LedgerX. Why? It's got CFTC alumni in its board of directors, and Goldman Sachs alumni. Now, the MIT, that's not a stain of negativity as far as I'm concerned. Those guys are actually trying to do some good stuff here in cryptocurrency land. However, as far as I'm concerned, Goldman Sachs is not a positive association. I mean, it might be in the sense that they have a lot of cred in the legacy markets and the legacy exposed regulated markets, but they're among the people that were participating in all of that glorious carnage that we look back on as the housing bubble. And you can't tell me they didn't. I'm sure they were among the primary beneficiaries of that fucking TARP funding. So, and CFTC alumni, again, same thing. It's like Larry Summers. He was involved in some way in the S&L crisis, and then again he tried to be the head of the Federal Reserve at one point. But he's in and around some crypto startup incubator kind of regulatory interface bullshits. I saw him around in here somewhere associated with like R3 or something like that. But I mean, these people, they're among like the principals that were involved in previous financial crises. They were at the center of them and shit. And so, them associating themselves into cryptocurrency spaces, it does not comfort me at all. It doesn't say to me, I want to give these people my money. It's one of the reasons why I turned my nose up to R3. It's Goldman Sachs and a bunch of other legacy members. And since then, Goldman Sachs and Chase have bailed on it. But as I said on my last episode, I'm almost certain that they have some alumni still rooting around in R3. Whether it's through some subsidiary that they've got, marked off on some side books or whatever, they've got involvement still at R3. I'm almost certain of it. But now how this really shows an impact out to the greater crypto market, I think basically in the point between legacy markets and the regulatory bodies, both state and federal, I think these are the places where they already do have the most impact, and the impact is usually negative. I'm really surprised that California hasn't passed their shit license yet. Because there's so much money involved in California in both the crypto space and just software development in general and hardware development, that I would have expected the regulators to be able to clamp down a little bit harder on it. But there again, it could be that the people that are involved in the crypto space have powerful enough friends that they're just like, all right, we'll back off for right now. We'll go ahead and leave this alone. Let you guys figure it out. That's really a good thing. But they haven't passed the bit license yet. Although I wanted to kind of sidetrack on that note for just a moment here. I was seeing something where they were having issues because they're creating so much solar power or solar-derived energy that they're having to pay other states to take it. Now, why the fuck isn't somebody going to the governor's office and saying, look, bro, hey, I want to turn this loss into a win for you here. I want to go out to the desert where there's nobody, okay, and I want to set up a hub, and then I want to set up a huge motherfucking mining farm not too far away from one of these solar arrays, and I will suck up all of the excess energy that you got from the solar panels, and I will turn that shit into coin. Why the fuck hasn't that happened? No, we gotta pay Nevada to take some of our excess electricity, because we're just not thinking that far ahead. Anyway, this little thing caught my eye until I saw the date on it, February 24th of 2016. Gotta be fucking kidding me. Not even gonna read it. No! Bye-bye. So yeah, U.S. regulators letting the CFTC going for fucking paper trading of Bitcoin. Yeah, good luck for that. I think that, oh, here it is. This is the tab for U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission. And this was on July 6th of 2017. CFTC grants SEF registration to LedgerX LLC. Washington, D.C., the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC, announced today that it has issued an order of registration to LedgerX LLC, granting it registration status with the CFTC as a swap execution facility. LedgerX is a limited liability company registered in Delaware with its primary place of business in New York. That's suspicious. SCFs are platforms that operate under the CFTC's regulatory oversight for the trading of swaps. The Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act of 2010 authorized the creation of SEFs. The CFTC issued the order under Section 5H of the Commodity Exchange Act, CEA, and CFTC Regulation 37.3b. After review of the LedgerX application and the associated exhibits, the CFTC has determined that LedgerX demonstrated compliance with the CEA and the CFTC's regulations applicable to SEFs. The terms and conditions of the order require, among other things, that LedgerX comply with all provisions of the CEA and all requirements of the CFTC's regulations as may be amended or adopted from time to time that are applicable to SEFs, meaning they can make it up as they go along. LedgerX also must comply with all representations and submissions made by it in support of its application for registration as an SCF, including, but not limited to, its representations that it will not list an intended to be cleared swap until it has a clearing agreement with the derivatives clearing organization registered under Section 5B of the CEA, and it will not list a swap that is not intended to be cleared until it submits to the CFTC's revisions of its rulebook and other pertinent registration materials pursuant to the provisions of Part 40 of the CFTC's regulations to provide for the execution of uncleared swaps. With this order, there are now 25 SCFs registered with the CFTC. Last updated July 6th, 2017. So yeah, interesting. They got the official papers recognizing them according to the federal government. You know, we've noted a few things in crypto on this show, mostly mimetic drift. I'm not going to go through that again. If you listen to like any 5 of my episodes, at least one time I've mentioned mimetic drift. But in mimetic drift, you also have to monitor things like omissions, like things we stop talking about. And one of the things that I've noticed that we stopped talking about is central points of failure. I don't hear that mentioned very much as a concern anymore. Central points of failure. And it's odd because the most glaring example of a central point of failure in cryptocurrencies is actually the exchanges. And what thing gets hacked the most in cryptocurrencies, other than cryptocurrencies themselves? The exchanges. The wallets get hit now and then, but for the most part, the big hits are always on exchanges. Now, consider you've got the additional stamp of approval of the federal government of the United States of America. Has this made you any more secure, any more intrinsically secure against hackery? Probably not. So now we have the increased trust of the legacy markets being imposed on cryptocurrency derivatives, something that has not existed before, and we are completely uncertain as to how it will impact the cryptocurrency market, or even if they're necessary in the cryptocurrency market. I mean, I'm pretty sure we got derivatives covered with ICOs these days. There's some that function more or less just like that. So again, the one with the additional stamp of trust for legacy markets, I don't see that as boding well, honestly. I see just as big a potential for scammery in altcoins and services that say straight out that they're Ponzi schemes, as I do something that's got the CFTC's stamp of approval. Because as we've talked about on this show multiple times, there is plenty of manipulation, there is plenty of fraud, there is plenty of outright theft going on in quote-unquote regulated markets, regulated fiat markets, which they supposedly control from the top down all the motherfucking time. Regardless of how many stamps of approval, you got the fucking stamp of approval of the fucking SEC, you got the FDIC, you got the CFTC, you got all these stamps of approval that say, oh yeah, these guys are wonderful, these guys are great, until they're not. And then we don't talk about the credibility of the CFTC or the SEC in determining the financial viability or solvency status of these fucking companies. Or the compliance status. I mean, as long as these say we're kissing your ass, everything is cool. Give them a little bit of money and they go away. But as soon as that money goes away, maybe then we'll draw you into question, maybe get you audited, evaluated, so on and so forth. Maybe we'll warn the public about you then. After the crime is already committed and your fucking CEO is in the Caribbean or somewhere else outside of the extradition policy of the United States government. and then we'll start warning people about you. Anywho, let's go ahead and drop back down into some music. And I'm feeling some need for some prong. And we already did touch on ruining lives. But I don't think we've tapped on anything from No Absolutes. Fuck it. With Dignity, here on Coin Metal. And that was Regenesis by Textures. And I've just been looking at that chart on Verge. That's a harsh cut, but I'm sure we'll rebound. It's the coin goes up, the coin goes down. And that's to be expected in crypto. You can't get too too overly impressed by it. You just gotta roll with it. In any case, I was checking out something here. Megadeth, apparently, they are currently on tour for Dystopia, and their next show is going to be tomorrow, 7/11/17, Dystopia World Tour in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and they will run all the way through, and they will cover all over the place, but they will not be coming to Oregon. Terribly disappointing. Anyway, November 1st, 2017 is the last stop on this tour. Man, they are going all over the place. Looks like a couple places might be getting a double dose here, too. Any case, so yeah, Megadeth, still rocking it after all this time. Every once in a while I'll catch pictures from their tour on my trusty Twitter feed, keeping me apprised of what's going on with my favorite bands. Anyway, we were talking about that association with cryptocurrencies that a lot of people like to push off, and that's with drugs. And this one happened relatively recently. This was, let's see, I think this was Thursday, the 6th? Yeah, that works. Some people put their dates differently, and so you can't tell if it's June 7th or July 6th. And this is by Avi Mizrahi. And oh, yes, he does have a penis. A picture of a male. Anyway, continuing. Looks like you're going to have to find a new venue to buy and sell illegal drugs and guns for cryptocurrency. The popular dark web marketplace Alphabay has been down for days now and doesn't appear to be coming back anytime soon. Learn how to buy Ethereum. No. As many users have been complaining for days on social media and community forums that their funded wallets at Alphabay are inaccessible and their money apparently lost, the operators now issued a short response. They say that the site will be back online soon, and they are working to restore Alphabay's servers as soon as possible. While many users want to believe this is true, pointing out the fact that Alphabay has been down before for considerable periods of time, evidence suggests otherwise. As can be seen with any Bitcoin blockchain explorer, funds are being cleaned out from the site's accounts. Just one of the wallet addresses associated with Alphabay has withdrawn 1,479 Bitcoin, worth about $4 million. This has led most people online calling Alphabay an exit scam and suggesting that people forget about ever seeing their funds again. An exit scam refers to an operator establishes an operation with the intention of disappearing and stealing all of the funds that it holds. Usually, the operators claim that they were hacked and that the money was stolen from them. The field is full of similar examples as users who buy illegal products can't turn to the police for help. Well, I think that if the trend to continue to liberalize and legalize and decriminalize drugs continues, places like the Alphabay might not be all that necessary in the near future. But I am certain they will still exist. As to whether or not Alphabay was a quote-unquote exit scam, I don't think that's the case. Maybe they are fixing up some servers, as seemed to be the case previously. You never know. I would imagine somebody in their market is constantly getting tracked or constantly getting hammered by government or other persons. And so, an occasional clearance of the old servers is probably necessary. But I don't know. I mean, we've seen enough of enough instances of both, where there's been issues with the servers, and then they get the servers back up, and we've seen enough cases where there have been people that just abscond with people's money and just call it good. Whether that's the case with the alphabet, I could not be definitive, unfortunately. And I'm looking to see if I can find some additional news on this, because it's kind of pertinent information, especially. Let's see here. We'll give it past week, because I've read claims to both both sides of it, that Alphabet is back up, or that Massive Points, and it seems like, according to my Google returns here, that the vast majority of them have been that people have feared that there's an exit scam going with Alphabet. So I don't know if that's the case. Very unfortunate, but it's the risk that you take by participating in unregulated markets. And I don't know. I am perfectly fine with that idea myself, but at the same time, I don't think people should be robbed. I'm not endorsing thievery or whatnot. I'm just stating a fact that you accept when you are transacting with these persons that there's a good possibility that they're going to make off with your funds. Now, one way to be more legitimate, I think, would be to operate with some sort of escrow service that's completely disconnected from you. Or I've suggested this before on this show, that what would be really cool is a website you could go to and you pay in whatever currency that you've got available. So if you got a credit card, they can take credit card payments, and if you've got a Bitcoin wallet, they can take Bitcoin payments and whatnot. But the way it works is that it's just an interface and an introduction space for particular products. And because the products are associated because of the thing, whether I keep thinking about it as in tackle shop, okay, like a fishing tackle shop. Like when you go to a fishing tackle shop, say you want to buy a rod, well, you bought a rod, but they've got reels there, and maybe you want to upgrade the reel along with the rod. Well, now you've got a rod and a reel, but do you have any line? Okay, so now you get some line, and so now you got a rod and a reel and some line, but nothing to put on the end of it. There's lures. So this is what I call associative sales. It's like with guns. All right, you buy a gun. Well, do you have a holster for your gun if it's a pistol? Do you have a sling if it's a rifle? If either one, do you have a case or a safe to put it in when you're not shooting it? Does it have optics? Do you have a cleaning kit? Do you have ammunition? These are all things that you associate with a firearm. So, you have like a fishing tackle shop, but like I said, you could accept payments and whatever, but the way it works is this, like, so say you've got like St. Croix fishing rods and Shimano fishing reels on there. Now, you don't hold any stock of either one. When somebody buys one of either of these items, the order goes directly to either Shimano for the reel or St. Croix for the rod. And when they fulfill the order and they submit the tracking number for the actual order itself, then that completes the transaction. They receive the Bitcoin. The product is clearly on the way, because now the third-party intermediary is either the U.S. Postal Service or FedEx or whatever shipping service that you've decided on. See, that's how I think that the markets of the future are actually going to work. And, you know, as far as like manufacturing and whatnot, I think manufacturing is going to go through the roof. Because the potential for individuation of pretty much everything you own it's entirely there. So like when you watch these motorcycle shows where they're in a shop and they're in a custom shop like OC Choppers or whatever it is, and you see all of these custom made bikes. All right, now imagine that for the lower receiver for your AR-15. Maybe there's a place out there, a guy makes fucking awesome lower receivers and makes them in whatever color you want, whatever. And so you order your lower receiver from that guy. But maybe his optics options aren't the best. Maybe you got a better option that will integrate with this lower receiver that you're purchasing that you could get from somebody else. And you have those on the same website, of course. But the point being is that you can subsect down further. The need to be consolidated into a bigger organization is a lot lower now. And so customization for all kinds of things, car parts, firearms, video game consoles, whatever, it's the potential for that is expanding. And what I really see as being necessary at this point is a greater diffusion of our regulatory bodies and getting rid of a lot of the red tape that the average quote-unquote person has in their way, stopping them from being an entrepreneur. We should eliminate as many of these artificial barriers as possible. You know, we have plenty of definitions on the books for what constitutes quote-unquote criminal activity. You know, now, when we've gotten so far to where we've criminalized how people structure their funds because we're so worried that they might be structuring their transactions in such a way as to avoid detection, well, maybe you've gone too fucking far somewhere else. And maybe you've gone too far there, too. But the point being that if our necessity is such for taxation that we can't permit any commercial activity to go on without taxation, dude, we're like completely screwed. I mean, and that's the big quagmire for California is they're looking at all of this development that's going on, and they're not seeing a reciprocal in their income tax statements. So they're like, okay, clearly there's people that are being compensated here in ways that they're not documenting or that are untaxable currently, and so we've got to get on the stick and try and get that money, because otherwise the whole edifice of the fucking state government is going to collapse in on itself, and my assistant's dog walker will no longer be able to be covered by the state insurance program, or the state employees insurance program. You know, I'm just saying that I think maybe we've gone a bit too far with bureaucratic overreach and whatnot. And especially when you look at cryptocurrencies in and of themselves, they're designed specifically not to need that kind of regulation. I mean, really, it's a public blockchain. If the transaction happens on the fucking blockchain, it's there. You know, if it happens somewhere else, then it's somebody else's problem. But until it's actually documented on the blockchain, and then it's there. You know, there's no question about it. It's there. Now, of course, they do want to change that. You know, that's one of the little things they don't talk about with regard to segregated witness and whatnot. But the whole payment, the whole Lightning Network thing allows for two-way, bidirectional payments. That means reversible payments. I'm pretty sure I got into cryptocurrencies, among other things, to get away from reversible transactions. I mean, because how faster to gum up the line of custody of who owns what, but to start allowing for reversible transactions. Well, that's just not good. But like I said, I'm pretty sure I got in here for, among other reasons, to get away from that crap. The manipulation. And paper derivatives, for that matter. I find it very disappointing that that's happening, but it's kind of predictable. I mean, kind of an expectation that if there's enough money in any given place, that somebody would skulk around trying to get a hold of some of it. So, anywho, but yeah, Alphabet, it's just one of the circumstances that we have to deal with, I mean, we deal with it with exchanges, and we've dealt with it on a lot bigger scale with regard to exchanges. I mean, they're starting to get a little more quote-unquote legitimate in their behavior and their operations. But as far as I can see, a lot of the problems that we're still currently having with regard to exchanges, we could probably avoid if we relied on the custody models that are available in that cryptocurrencies make available, rather than trying to rely on the same custody models that we did with fiat currencies, or that we do with fiat currencies. I don't know. That's just me. I think it's possible to keep enough shit in cold storage that you don't even need to worry about that shit. I mean, I found that I still find that very, very interesting, that anytime a cryptocurrency exchange's solvency status is brought into question. I mean, if I were running a cryptocurrency exchange, I would have the public addresses for my cold wallets, my cold storage, readily available. Oh, what, you want to check my solvency status? Check it out. There it is. I mean, that eliminates the possibility of fractional reserve trading, but keeps you out of a lot of trouble that way too. I mean, if you're 100% solvent, then big whoop-de-doo, there's a fucking run on the account, on the currency. Big fucking deal. You've got all the fucking volume to cover it. Anyway, talking about things that could potentially be taking down things like the Alphabet and whatnot. Greed is, of course, among the top concerns, but there are other issues. And I saw this one, and the regulatory schemas as they change, those can also cause disruptions in cryptocurrency markets, as we've readily observed on a daily basis. And I've got an article here on Bitcoin.com. Polish authorities issue sweeping condemnation of Bitcoin and other digital currencies. Maybe this has something to do with their association to drugs. Anyway, this is written on July 8th, 2017 by Sterling Lujan. And I'm going to assume Sterling has a penis. I'm not going to go beyond that. Polish authorities, regulators, and banks issued a sweeping statement warning of the risk of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other cryptocurrencies. They said these currencies are not national or legal tender and cannot be used to pay taxes. They do not fall within the guidelines provided by Polish Financial Supervision Authority. Businesses especially should be wary about adopting or trying to use virtual currencies. And so here we go. The authorities warning read Polish National Bank and Financial Supervision Commission report that virtual currencies are not issued or guaranteed by the central bank of the state, not money, i.e., they are not legal tender or currency, cannot be used to pay off tax liabilities, and do not meet the criterion of general acceptance in retail outlets. Who are you to fucking decide that? The article, however, did mention that, quote, virtual currencies currently do not violate EU or national law. They just allegedly harbor a laundry list of risks, and people should recognize these risks before getting involved in the digital currency landscape. Thank you. That's a perfectly reasonable recommendation right there. Polish authorities outline risks involved with use of, quote, virtual currencies. The Polish authorities said that risk of theft is a huge problem in this space. This is especially the cause when an exchange is used to facilitate trade. Quote, virtual currencies are not guaranteed by the bank either, since they are not bank receipts, or bank deposits rather. The Polish authorities also said the currency is not, quote, universally accepted at retail outlets, and this makes it challenging to use and provides opportunities for being defrauded. Lastly, the article said that these types of money may be nothing more than, quote, a pyramid scheme. In this regard, if an investor fell prey to this kind of scheme, the only kind of protection would be criminal, read the article. Wow. There is allegedly no legal institution that has an obligation to protect investors from this kind of dupe. Authorities do not invest in cryptocurrencies. Polish Bitcoin usage. The Polish authorities say it would not be a wise investment to purchase these assets given their risk assessment. They are against using exchanges to purchase, manage, or otherwise be involved in Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. The site even said it would be risky if investors were regulated and added. The Polish National Bank and Financial Supervision Commission considers that buying, owning, and selling currency of virtual entities supervised by the Financial Supervision Commission would be high risk and would not provide a stable and prudent management of the financial institution. Couldn't agree more. This warning comes as more Polish restaurants and eateries have begun to accept Bitcoin as a method of payment. Poland's largest food delivery service with 5,000 plus restaurants recently started accepting the digital currency. It will be interesting to see how the general public and investors react to recent condemnations of Bitcoin and other digital currencies. Let's see. Well, yeah. Yes, apparently Sterling does have a penis. He has a picture here at the bottom. Very well written article. Not too many glitches or anything like that. And so, yeah, Poland apparently seems to be making the progression of a full cycle. You know, if companies such as eateries and whatnot are accepting Bitcoin, I mean, that resolves a major issue, you know, for people that are involved in cryptocurrencies, that they could be using their cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin and possibly, I would assume maybe Ethereum and whatnot, to purchase everyday items such as food. That's just awesome. I love it. But the warning being put out by the Polish government, it does note that it's not against national law, and I think that's actually a positive note. It's interesting that they would issue any kind of condemnation, but you know, it's not dissimilar for our second axiom on this show is do your homework. If you're going to be trying to invest money in something, do your homework, man. Find out if it's backed by some recycled gold from some plant in Rostock, Russia, or some shit like that. I mean, come on now. You can do that. You have the internet now. But, yeah, so Poland, I'm sure that they'll probably be ahead of the United States in no time, especially if they maintain their current regulatory temperament with regard to cryptocurrencies. As long as they're just warning people about them and making people aware that yes, there are scams, there are pyramid schemes in cryptocurrencies, and they most certainly should do their homework before trying to invest in them. It's good that they're not giving any kind of outright prohibition or containment of the crypto space within their borders, which that's a good thing, because it allows for the possibility that it will stay the same elsewhere as well. Because as I've noted, this is the equivalent of the mutually assured destruction doctrine of the 1950s through 1980s, where, go ahead, press your button. I've got retaliatory strike capabilities, and I'll fucking destroy us all. That's that scorched earth policy. But we no longer have the ability to do that in currencies anymore. I mean, I think there was a push to get us all cashless and going by credit cards and being enslaved within a single monetary system. But once it went open source with Bitcoin, that the possibility for that world to exist ended. And so any push by any kind of federal or state government on cryptocurrencies is only going to shift the energies elsewhere. That's all it's going to do. It's not going to make it go away. It's not going to make it something you can ignore or something you can take it for granted as being contained, because that possibility is no longer there. I mean, I could start up a cryptocurrency this evening, and it could be traded globally by tomorrow. So, again, the possibility of such containment is over, and so the paradigms that go along with it are pretty much moribund and obsolete. Obsolete, indeed. And so stuff like this, EU member states to respond to cybercrime in unison. I mean, we can't even ascertain with current tools for certain persons who were involved in a quote-unquote cybercrime. So the idea of the EU responding in unison to it is kind of silly to me. Anyway, let's continue into this one. This is deep.web.com. EU member states to respond to cybercrime in unison. This was posted by C Aliens, July 8th, 2017. In June, the European Council announced Cyber Diplomacy Toolbox. The toolbox is a set of guidelines for member countries when dealing with cybercrime, and more importantly, how to uniformly handle cybercrime, cooperating with other European Union member states. The toolbox was designed so that any applicable cybercrime against a member state could warrant a joint retaliation by the EU as a whole. And according to the EU, the toolbox is part of their approach to cyber diplomacy and the prevention of cybercrime, the mediation of cyber disputes, and the encouraging of long and short-term collaboration. The EU press release explained that the new diplomatic response to cybercrime will make full use of measures within the common foreign and security policy, including, if necessary, restrictive measures. The response, they explained, would be proportionately scaled to that of the initial cyber attack. Quote, in a conversation with Cyberscoop, an EU official said, the key principle here is proportionality. It is EU member states who would decide what measures should be used depending on the case they would face. This work aims to promote enhanced shared situational awareness, information sharing, and efficient decision making, and should see the development of a procedure for the attribution of cyber attacks in the context of Cyber Diplomacy Toolbox. The framework creates the structure to jointly impose full economic sanctions on the offending party. Member states would be able to punish a wide range of cyber criminals, individuals, hacking groups, and even entire countries. The EU reiterates that states should not knowingly allow their territory to be used for internationally wrongful acts using information and communication technologies, they reiterated. Komodo's senior research scientist Kenneth Gears told Cyberscoop that, quote, the potential impact is the important factor for both allies and adversaries. Furthermore, allies want more security, adversaries will fear isolation and action, whether diplomatic, economic, or military. Cybersecurity is fundamentally an international problem, so it requires an international solution. Unanimity is good and bad, hard to achieve, but worth the wait, he added. The announcement ended with a statement about the EU's commitment to the peaceful settlement of international cybercrime incidents. Through increased cooperation and collaboration, they hope to cut down on unnecessary escalation of cybercrime responses. Yeah, okay. Whatever. From what I can tell, the EU is facing dissolution. I mean, why they're even bothering with a toolbox at this point for this particular shit? I mean, why would you do national sanctions against a country? I mean, to me, this is more like setting up for a pretext against Iran or other state that you've been trying to justify a pretext for invasion for. So say you suffer another one of these WannaCry attacks, or not Petya, whatever. Say you get another one of these attacks, then you could point to Russia and say, it was the Russians. The Russians did it. We've got to place sanctions on the Russians because the signal originated in Russia that sent this package to us, and so we gotta put sanctions on Russia. Oh no, it happened again. Now we got to invade Russia. Because this is including military responses here, right? Well, that's a military response. Fucking invasion. That's pretty military. So, yeah, like I said, this seems to me to be a pretext for, or trying to set a pretext for precedent of leaning on state actors, i.e. China, Russia, Iran, or North Korea, and getting undiplomatic with their cyber diplomacy toolbox. Yeah, this is, it just seems to me to be setting some sort of precedent for state action in the event of a quote-unquote cyber attack that is unattributable to a nation, but on a response on a national scale. And they're talking about not wanting to escalate shit through collaboration. Give me a fucking break. That's probably increased fucking escalation right there. And this, I guess this is the same article more or less. Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to read the same article twice. So what have we learned today? We've learned that the United States war on drugs is contaminating pretty much everything with a standard of criminality that is inhibiting casual everyday commerce that in all aspects doesn't really harm any individuals, unless of course the person using is hopelessly addicted to some sort of opioid or another, or cocaine or any of its derivatives. The point being that the issues with regard to the drug market that create the necessity for the quote-unquote drug war, or at least the illusion of the necessity for the drug war, are the laws that are inhibiting those drugs from reaching the casual market. You know, if I could go to Albertsons, which is a local market store here, that's a local reference. My apologies. I forget sometimes that I'm talking to a more or less global audience sometimes. But anyway, point being, if I could go down there and have an option of, I'm feeling like tripping with the missus tonight. I think I should pick up some psilocybin mushrooms and we're gonna go camping. Let's go ahead and do that. Now, if I could do that without the possibility of me getting busted for the mere purchase of it or the mere possession of it, I would be much more inclined to do it that way. Now, then it becomes incumbent on Albertsons for determining the quality of the substances that they're willing to put on the shelves. It's not incumbent upon the federal government or the state government to create some sort of regulatory board that's going to oversee that shit. It's completely unnecessary. Now, what they could do, which would be useful, I think, is keep record of statistics. Things like hospital entries. We start seeing a major spike in hospital entries due to poisoning or something because people are eating the wrong mushrooms or Albertsons let the wrong mushrooms get out onto the fucking shelf. We can fucking deal with that. We can look at the statistics and say, hey, you know what? During the month of, February, there was an uptick in, stomach-related issues with people that ingested such and such a mushroom. And now we can deal with that issue. That issue didn't require anybody being thrown in jail. It didn't require a no-knock raid at 3 a.m. in the morning, but it could provide us with real actionable data, which should help us wend into a society that has a more healthy relationship with mind-altering substances. And I think ultimately that should be the goal, is harm reduction, harm elimination. And so that kind of brings up an interesting question, though. If in fact we do get to the point where we have liberalized even the hard drug markets here in the United States, what will that mean for people that are in prison solely because they were facilitating commerce prior to the federal or state governments being ready for it? What will we do to those people? Will we be letting Ross Ulbricht out of prison? I mean, because honestly, he wouldn't be in prison if it weren't for the actions of two highly corrupt DEA agents. An office of which, of course, was created to fight the quote-unquote drug war, and as I mentioned before, exists in 50 other fucking countries outside the United States. So the unhealthy relationship is created by the prohibition. That's what we've learned today. That because of that ilth that's introduced into the market, we have to deal with it everywhere else. Now we have to monitor for money laundering because we don't want the people that are potentially bringing deleterious chemicals to the market to be rewarded for doing so. But now, of course, they probably wouldn't have a market if we had a legitimate and open perspective with regard to drugs here in this country. And abroad, in other countries as well. And same thing with regard to cryptocurrencies. Well, you wouldn't even be worried about quote-unquote money laundering with regard to cryptocurrencies if in fact this unhealthy relationship created by the drug prohibition did not exist. Because one of the contexts that you use to monitor such activities is, of course, the money itself. And if it's being transacted in a cryptocurrency, that gives it some sort of, gives a stain that there's a possibility that it is supporting such unscrupulous individuals. Or scrupulous individuals? Scrupulous individuals. Yeah, not un. That's like unregardless. You've probably heard that word. I cringe every time somebody says that word. Anyway, where we're getting with all of this is that these are things that cryptocurrencies will eventually mete out. I mean, it started with the liberalization of the marijuana market here in the United States, starting, of course, here in the state of Oregon and others. And it will end with my being able to go down to Albertsons and buy very clean, very reputable ecstasy tablets. I don't know, maybe I'm looking a little bit too far down the road, but the liberalization of the drug markets by liberalization of the medium of exchange, i.e. the creation of cryptocurrencies, is having that sort of effect. It's like, well, fuck, well, why are we even bothering wasting the tax dollars on trying to regulate this shit when people are still going to go around or behind our back and buy it in Bitcoin or Litecoin or Dogecoin or whatever they can get people to exchange with? Why are we even bothering anymore? And in an age when we're looking for places to save on tax monies, save the taxpayers' money, it's not too hard to make the case that we don't necessarily need to engage in the war on drugs and the expenditures that that the preservation of it entail. All the way from busting people on the street and monitoring their web traffic to monitoring their transactions and setting up an entire department of the IRS to do nothing but watch for those kind of transactions happening or those kind of volumes, changing hands from person to person. It's creating a system creep that has created the necessity for us to divest from our national currencies. I mean, really, how much bigger a sign do you need flashed in your face to let you know you've gone too far than your people are creating other currencies outside of your control in order to transact with one another? I mean, really, the foot's a little bit hard on the throat, wouldn't you say? Any case, I want to go ahead and close out this episode. Just another reminder, John McAfee will be joining us, or McAfee? I'm not sure how to pronounce it. We'll straighten that out when we get him on here. Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here on Coin Metal. So be sure to join us. I'd like to thank you all for your support, both in the listenership and, of course, on the trusty Twitter feed. I love seeing my notifications light up. Sorry I'm not joining you guys in Telegram. I may be getting back on Slack soon. I uninstalled it for some reason or another, but I'll I'll reinstall it just so I can interact with you guys there. As always, I am in the IRC chat room. You can also find me on Twitter and Facebook, DJ eRock23. This episode is being recorded and will be posted up on my YouTube channel, as with all of the others. And so, until Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I'd like to wish you all to trade safe and do your homework and watch out for your bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Not even the CFTC. In any case, we're going to go ahead and close it out with a little White Zombie here. More Human Than Human for our last dance of the evening. Y'all have an excellent evening, and thank you again for listening. Good night.